3 months after their unexpected wedding, Yalin stood in the palace's communication center, fielding yet another urgent message from Earth's diplomatic corps. His reflection in the holographic display showed a man transformed, more relaxed, happier, with the confident bearing of someone who had found his place in the universe. Ambassador Thorne. Director Hassan's image flickered with static from the long-distance transmission. The Galactic Council is demanding an explanation for your ... situation. Some members are claiming that your marriage compromises Earth's neutrality in Outer Rim politics. Yalin straightened, his diplomatic training kicking in. Director, my marriage to Princess Kira has actually strengthened our alliance with the Varakans threefold. Trade agreements that were stalled for years have been finalized, and 3 other Outer Rim species have requested Earth as mediator for their disputes, specifically because of the trust our union represents. That may be true, but furthermore, Yalin continued smoothly, I've submitted detailed cultural reports that have prevented at least 2 major diplomatic incidents with other species. My unique position gives me insights that no other human diplomat possesses. Hassan sighed, his expression softening slightly. Yalin, off the record, are you happy? Because you look different. Yalin smiled. I am happier than I ever imagined possible. After ending the transmission, Yalin made his way to the palace's highest tower, where he found Kira in her private study. She was working on a complex piece of legislation regarding interspecies trade rights, her 4-fingered hands moving gracefully as she manipulated holographic documents. How did the call with Earth go? She asked without looking up. Same as always. Concern, confusion, and ultimately acceptance when they see the results. He moved behind her chair and gently massaged her shoulders. They're starting to realize that our marriage might be the best diplomatic coup in human history. Kira leaned back against him, a soft sound of contentment escaping her lips. And personally? How do you feel about being a diplomatic coup? Personally, Yalin said, bending to nuzzle her neck, I think I got the better end of the deal. She turned in her chair to face him, her violet eyes sparkling with mischief. Oh, really? What makes you so sure? Instead of answering with words, Yalin cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply. Even after months of marriage, the connection between them still sent electricity through his veins. The golden threads that bound them pulsed with warm light, a constant reminder of their soul-deep compatibility. Because, he said against her lips, I found something I didn't even know I was looking for. That evening, they hosted a dinner for visiting dignitaries from 5 different worlds. Yalin watched with pride as Kira gracefully navigated the complex social dynamics, switching between languages and cultural protocols with practiced ease. More than once, he caught other species representatives looking at them with expressions of wonder, not just at their obvious affection for each other, but at what their union represented. You know what I love most about this? Kira whispered to him during a lull in conversation. What's that? We're proving that love really can transcend any barrier. Species, culture, distance, none of it matters when 2 souls are meant to be together. Later that night, as they walked through the palace's moonlit gardens, Yalin reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. 6 months ago, he'd been a lonely workaholic who'd convinced himself that career was enough. Now he was part of something bigger, a love story that was literally reshaping interstellar relations. Do you ever miss your old life? Kira asked, as if reading his thoughts. Alen considered the question seriously. I miss pizza, he said finally, making her laugh. And I miss some of my friends on Earth. But miss my old life? Never. That wasn't living, that was just existing. They stopped beside a fountain that reflected the twin moons in its crystalline waters. Kira turned to face him, her expression serious. Yalin, there's something I need to tell you. His heart skipped. What is it? I've been meeting with the royal physicians. She took his hands in hers, the golden threads immediately responding with warm pulses of light. Our bond, it's created something unprecedented. What do you mean? Her smile was radiant. The energy connection between us is literally evolving. The physicians believe that within a generation, our children will be able to form similar bonds with others of their choosing, regardless of species. We're not just married, Yalin, we're the beginning of a new kind of galactic unity. The implications took his breath away. Their love wasn't just personal, it was evolutionary. A step toward a future where all sentient beings could truly understand and connect with each other. So our accidental marriage, he began, wasn't accidental at all, Kira finished. The universe has a way of bringing together what belongs together. As they kissed beneath the alien stars, surrounded by the soft glow of their eternal bond, Yalin knew that walking down that aisle, even by accident, had been the best decision he'd never made. Love, he'd learned, didn't ask permission or follow protocol. It simply was, in all its transcendent, transformative glory. And sometimes, just sometimes, it could unite not just two hearts, but entire worlds. Over the following days, Yalin discovered that being married to an alien princess was nothing like he'd imagined. Kira was intelligent, funny, and surprisingly down to earth, despite her royal status. She took him on private tours of the palaces, hidden gardens, where they talked for hours about everything from interstellar politics to their favorite foods. "So humans really eat something called pizza?" she asked one afternoon as they sat beside a fountain that sang different melodies, depending on the time of day. "It's basically bread with sauce and cheese," Yalin explained, smiling at her expression of polite bewilderment. "I know it sounds terrible, but trust me, it's amazing. And you put fish on it sometimes? Some people do. I prefer pepperoni." "What's pepperoni?" "You know what? I'm going to make you pizza sometime. It's easier to understand once you taste it." Kira's eyes lit up. "You cook? I dabble. What about you?" "Do Viracan princesses learn to cook?" She laughed. "Not exactly. But I'd love to learn." These casual conversations revealed layers to her personality that surprised him. Beneath the regal bearing and formal training, she was curious about the universe, passionate about art and music, and possessed a sharp wit that kept him constantly entertained. The physical attraction was harder to ignore. Every accidental touch sent sparks through him, and he found himself watching the graceful way she moved, the elegant gestures of her hands when she spoke, the way the light caught in her dark hair. One evening, as they sat in their private dining area sharing a meal of exotic Veracan delicacies, the tension between them finally reached a breaking point. "Yalin," Kara said softly, setting down her glass of sparkling wine, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you find me attractive? I know our species are very different, and I wouldn't want you to feel obligated." He reached across the small table and took her hand, cutting off her worried words. "Kira, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, regardless of species. That's not the problem. Then what is?" He struggled to find the right words. "This whole situation is so surreal. A week ago, I was a bachelor diplomat focused entirely on my career. Now I'm married to a princess on an alien world, and I'm finding myself... "Feeling what?" she prompted gently. "Falling for you," he admitted. "And that terrifies me because I don't know if it's real or just some kind of biochemical reaction to the binding ceremony." Kira stood and moved around the table to sit beside him. "The binding ceremony doesn't create feelings, Yalin. It only reveals what's already there." She lifted their joined hands. They discovered that the energy threads were permanent, connecting them with a warm golden glow whenever they touched. "What you're feeling is real." The space between them seemed to crackle with electricity. Kira's violet eyes were dark with desire, and when she leaned closer, Yalin felt his last reservations crumble. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered. "I've never been more sure of anything," she replied. When their lips met, it was like completing a circuit. The golden glow from their bound hands spread up their arms and seemed to envelop them both in warm light. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but quickly deepened as months of suppressed attraction finally found release. Kira's lips were soft and warm, and she tasted like the sweet wine they'd been sharing. When she sighed softly against his mouth, Yalin felt something fundamental shift inside him. This wasn't just physical attraction. This was connection, understanding, the recognition of a soul that complemented his own. They broke apart, both. Breathing heavily, foreheads pressed together. "The bedroom," Kira whispered. "Please." The transition from dining area to bedroom was a blur of gentle touches and whispered endearments. Kira's fingers traced the lines of his face as if memorizing them, while Yalin marveled at the silky texture of her skin and the way she seemed to glow from within when aroused. Their lovemaking was tender and exploratory, a careful dance of discovery, as they learned each other's bodies and preferences. Despite their biological differences, they found perfect harmony in their passion. Kira's alien anatomy was beautifully exotic, but fundamentally compatible, and the way she responded to his touch filled him with wonder and desire. Later, as they lay entwined beneath sheets that sparkled with captured starlight, Yalin traced lazy patterns on Kira's shoulder. "No regrets?" she asked softly. "None," he replied, meaning it completely. "You? How could I regret finding my soulmate?" She lifted her head to look at him. "That's what you are, you know." The binding ceremony confirmed it. "We're perfectly matched on every level that matters." As if to prove her point, the golden threads connecting their hands pulsed with gentle warmth, a physical manifestation of their deepening bond. Outside their windows, the twin moons of Viraka Prime shone down on their union, blessing the love that had transcended species and transformed a diplomatic mission into the greatest romance of Jalen's life. The celebration feast that followed the ceremony was a blur of exotic foods, flowing alien wines, and congratulations from beings Yalin had never met. He sat beside Princess Kira, his wife. He reminded himself with growing panic at the high table, trying to maintain diplomatic composure while internally screaming. "You seem tense," Kira observed quietly, her voice barely audible over the festivities. Up close, he could see that her sapphire skin had a subtle texture like fine scales, and when she smiled, her teeth were perfectly white and slightly pointed. "Tense?" Yalin laughed, a sound edged with hysteria. "I just accidentally married an alien princess in front of half the galaxy." "Tense doesn't begin to cover it." Kira's expression grew concerned. "Accidentally?" But the invitation was quite clear about your role as the honored participant. "Honored observer," Yalin corrected. "I was supposed to be an observer." A look of genuine surprise crossed her beautiful features. Oh no. She placed her free hand, they were still bound by the ceremonial threads, over her mouth. There truly was a mistranslation. Before they could discuss it further, King Vex approached their table, his forearms spread wide in celebration. "My new son-in-law, how does it feel to be bonded to the most beautiful princess in the Outer Rim?" "Your Majesty," Yalin began carefully, "there seems to have been some confusion." "Nonsense." The king boomed. The joining was perfect. The energy. Threads accepted. You completely see how they still glow between you. He gestured to their bound hands, where the light had indeed taken on a warm golden hue. Such radiance indicates a truly compatible match. Yalin looked down at their joined hands, noticing for the first time how natural it felt. The initial electric sensation had settled into a warm, comforting presence that seemed to calm his racing heart. Father, Kira interjected gently, perhaps we should allow my husband some time to adjust. This is all very new to his culture. The king nodded sagely. Of course, the bonding chambers have been prepared. You must complete the sacred union under the light of both moons tonight. He winked at Yalin with one of his 6 eyes. Verakan tradition, you understand. Heat flooded Jalin's cheeks as the implications hit him. The bonding chambers? Don't worry, Kira whispered, leaning close enough that her breath tickled his ear. We can discuss everything privately. Several hours later, after endless congratulations and ceremonial toasts, Yalin found himself being escorted to the royal quarters by a parade of giggling Verakan servants. The bonding chambers were a series of interconnected rooms carved from living crystal, their walls pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns that responded to movement and emotion. The main chamber centered around a massive bed that seemed to be grown rather than built, its frame consisting of intertwined crystal branches covered in the softest fabrics Yalin had ever felt. Floating orbs provided gentle illumination, and the walls were transparent on one side, offering a breathtaking view of the twin moons rising over the crystal forests below. Kira entered from an adjoining chamber, having changed from her elaborate wedding gown into something more intimate, a flowing robe that seemed to be cut from liquid moonlight. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, and without the formal ceremony makeup, Yalin could see that her natural beauty was even more stunning. Are you angry with me? She asked, approaching slowly as if he might bolt. Jalen sank onto a cushioned sitting area near the transparent wall. I don't know what I am. Confused, definitely. Overwhelmed, a little terrified. He looked up at her. Are you disappointed? This can't be how you imagined your wedding day. To his surprise, she laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Actually, it's exactly how I hoped it would be. What do you mean? Kira settled beside him, careful to maintain some distance. Yalin, may I be completely honest with you? He nodded, though he wasn't sure he was ready for whatever she might reveal. I've been watching you for months. Your diplomatic visits, your speeches at the Galactic Council, the way you treat everyone with equal respect regardless of their species. Her violet eyes met his. I've been fascinated by you since the first time you set foot on our world. The admission sent a shock through him. You arranged this? Not exactly. But when my father mentioned honoring you with an invitation to witness my wedding, I may have influenced the translation of certain key phrases. She looked down at her hands. In our culture, to invite someone to witness a royal wedding, as the honored participant automatically designates them as the chosen mate. It's an ancient law designed to prevent political marriages and ensure that royal unions are based on genuine choice. Yalin stared at her in amazement. You orchestrated this entire thing. I wanted to meet you properly, to see if what I felt was real or just foolish infatuation. Her cheeks darkened to a deeper blue, apparently the Verakan equivalent of blushing. I never expected the connection to be so strong. When the binding threads accepted you so completely. She trailed off, and they sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both looking out at the moons. Yalin found himself studying her profile, noting the elegant curve of her neck and the way the moonlight caught the subtle patterns in her skin. So what happens now? He asked quietly. Now we have a choice, she replied. Verakan law recognizes the binding, and according to interstellar treaty, you're officially my husband. But if you truly wish to leave, I'll find a way to dissolve the union, regardless of the political consequences. Yalin considered this. The rational part of his mind screamed that he should run, that this was insane and impossible. But another part, a part that had been captivated by her grace and beauty, that felt strangely at home in her presence, whispered that maybe, just maybe, This could be the beginning of something extraordinary. And if I stayed? He asked. Kira turned to face him fully. Then we learn about each other. We see if this attraction is real, or just the magic of the binding ceremony. We take it one day at a time. The moonlight streaming through the crystal walls painted them both in silver and gold. Yalin reached out tentatively and touched her hand, the one that had been bound to his. The warmth that spread through him at the contact felt natural, right. One day at a time, he agreed softly. For the first time since the ceremony, Princess Kira smiled with pure, unguarded joy. The morning of the wedding dawned with spectacular beauty as Viraka Prime's twin suns painted the sky in ribbons of rose and gold. Yalin, dressed in his finest diplomatic uniform, deep navy, with silver threading that caught the alien light, and made his way to the ceremonial amphitheater carved into the mountainside. The venue took his breath away. Thousands of Virakans filled crystalline seats that curved in perfect spirals around a central dais. Floating gardens drifted overhead, releasing petals that sparkled like diamonds as they fell. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy that made his skin tingle. This way, honored guest, a court official guided him not to the observer seating he'd expected, but to an ornate throne positioned prominently beside the altar. Yalin hesitated, but diplomatic protocol demanded he not question his host's arrangements. As he settled into the surprisingly comfortable seat, he noticed the way every Virakan in attendance turned to look at him with expressions of barely contained excitement. Their sapphire faces seemed to glow brighter, and he caught whispered conversations in their musical language that his translator couldn't quite parse. The ceremony began with haunting melodies that seemed to emerge from the very stones themselves. Virakan priests in flowing robes of liquid silver moved in intricate patterns around the altar, their forearms weaving symbols in the air that left trails of luminescent energy. Then came the moment that would change everything. Princess Kira peered at the far end of the amphitheater, and Jalin's breath caught in his throat. She was absolutely stunning, tall and graceful, with the characteristic sapphire skin of her people, but hers seemed to shimmer with an inner radiance that set her apart. Her dark hair flowed like liquid night, adorned with crystals that captured and reflected the morning light. Her gown appeared to be made of starlight itself, flowing and shifting with each step. But it was her eyes that truly captured him, large, luminous orbs of deep violet that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages and the promise of infinite mysteries. The crowd fell silent as she began her procession down the aisle. Yalin looked around, searching for the groom who should be approaching from the other direction. Instead, he found thousands of alien faces turned toward him with expressions of joyful anticipation. His confusion deepened as Princess Kira continued walking directly toward him. "Where's the groom?" he whispered to the court official beside him, but the alien only smiled and gestured for silence. Princess Kira's violet eyes never left his face as she approached. There was something in her gaze and intensity that made his heart race and his palms grow damp. When she reached the altar, she didn't stop or turn to wait for another. Instead, she extended one elegant hand toward him. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers that shook the very mountains. "Rise, chosen one," the high priest commanded in perfect English, his voice carrying across the amphitheater without amplification. "Come forward to receive your sacred bond." Yalin remained frozen in his seat, his mind reeling. I think there's been a mistake, but his words were drowned out by the celebratory roars of the crowd. Before he could protest further, two ceremonial guards, clearly acting on prearranged signals, gently but firmly guided him to his feet and toward the altar. "Wait, I don't understand," he began, but Princess Kira stepped closer, her perfume something like night-blooming jasmine mixed with ozone filling his senses. "Trust me," she whispered in accented English, her voice like liquid music. "Please." The high priest began chanting in ancient Virakan, his words creating visible patterns of light in the air between them. Before Yalin could comprehend what was happening, the priest took his right hand and Princess Kira's, binding them together with threads of pure energy that felt warm and electric against his skin. The binding ceremony was unlike anything in human culture. The energy threads didn't just connect their hands, they seemed to create a bridge between their very souls. Yalin felt a sudden rush of emotions that weren't entirely his own. Curiosity, hope, desire, and underneath it all, a deep, patient love that took his breath away. By the light of our twin suns and the blessing of our ancestors, the high priest declared, I pronounce you bound in sacred union before all the galaxy. May your joining bring prosperity to both your peoples. The crowd's celebration reached a fever pitch as flower petals and glowing crystals rained down from above. Traditional Virakan music filled the air, and couples throughout the amphitheater began dancing in celebration. Yalin stood transfixed, still bound to the woman beside, him by threads of living light as the reality of his situation finally sank in. He had just been married to an alien princess in front of thousands of witnesses and multiple interstellar news feeds. Princess Kira squeezed his bound hand gently. Welcome to the family, husband, she said with a smile that was both mysterious and warmly affectionate. As diplomatic crises went, this was definitely unprecedented. Ambassador Yalin Thorne sat in his modest office aboard the orbital station, staring at the holographic invitation that shimmered before him like captured starlight. The elegant script seemed to dance in languages he couldn't read, but the universal translator had made the message crystal clear. He was being invited to witness the royal wedding of Princess Kyra of Viraka Prime. This is quite an honor, his assistant Elena remarked, peering over his shoulder at the glowing display. The Virakans rarely invite outsiders to their sacred ceremonies. Yalin rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. 3 years into his assignment as Earth's primary diplomatic liaison with the Outer Rim species, he'd learned that every gesture carried significance far beyond its surface meaning. The Virakans were a proud, ancient race whose friendship had proven invaluable in maintaining peace among the star systems. I suppose I don't have much choice, he muttered, though part of him was genuinely curious about Virakan culture. Their moon world was said to be breathtakingly beautiful, with crystalline forests and floating gardens that defied conventional physics. Elena pulled up files on her datapad. According to our cultural database, Virakan weddings are elaborate, affairs lasting several days. They believe that witnessing a royal union brings good fortune to all present. She paused, frowning slightly, though there are some traditions that seem unclear in the translation. Yalin waved dismissively. I'm sure it's just ceremonial pageantry. These royal events always are. He stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the swirling nebula that painted the star field in shades of purple and gold. Besides, strengthening our alliance with the Virakans is worth a little discomfort. The journey to Viraka Prime took 2 days aboard his diplomatic shuttle. As they approached the moon world, Yalin pressed his face to the observation deck windows, mesmerized by the alien landscape below. Towering spires of what looked like living crystal jutted from verdant valleys, while bioluminescent vines wrapped around floating islands that drifted lazily through the atmosphere. Magnificent, breathed Captain Torres, his pilot and security. Chief, no wonder they call it the jewel of the Outer Rim. The royal palace was even more spectacular up close. Built into the side of a massive cliff face, it seemed to grow organically from the rock itself, its walls pulsing with soft, rhythmic light that matched the heartbeat of the planet below. Yalin was escorted through corridors lined with singing, crystals that responded to his presence with gentle melodies. King Vex greeted him personally, an unprecedented honor that left Yalin slightly overwhelmed. The Viracan ruler stood nearly 8 feet tall, his sapphire skin marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. His forearms gestured gracefully as he spoke in his melodious native tongue. "Welcome, honored friend from Earth," the translator rendered his words. "Your presence brings great joy to our house. You shall have a place of highest honor at tomorrow's ceremony." That evening, as Yalin settled into his luxurious guest quarters, he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was being lost in translation. The way the servants looked at him, with a mixture of reverence and excitement, seemed excessive for a simple diplomatic observer. When he asked his Viracan liaison about the wedding traditions, the young alien's response was cryptic. "Tomorrow, you will understand the true depth of our gratitude, Ambassador Thorn. The joining of souls is sacred, and your role is essential." As Yalin drifted off to sleep beneath blankets woven from moonbeam silk, he had no idea that somewhere in the palace, Princess Kira was preparing for a ceremony that would change both their lives forever. The cultural misunderstanding that would trap him in marriage was already set in motion, waiting only for tomorrow's sunrise to unfold.